Hey everybody, Carissa Romaine here. We are in the studio at TEDx Beacon Street, and I'm sitting here with Sameena Shah, the Managing Director of AI Research at JP Morgan Chase. You're fresh off the stage. How'd it feel?
I feel great. Thank you for having me.
It's so nice to be able to hear your story, and what is really interesting about it is that it all started with ants.
Yeah.
Can you give just a high level for the people who haven't watched your talk yet of how these ants have kind of inspired your journey?
Sure. So when I was a little girl, I loved playing out in nature. One day, I saw that an insect had died, and there were these tiny ants that were coming, biting off pieces and going back to their nest. I thought, let me block their path to see what happens. To my surprise, the ants didn't give up and start eating the food. They didn't look depressed nor upset. They just found another way.
Right.
How could they adapt so easily?
It's incredible. Like, you think that they're small or they would feel like there are these challenges in their way, and they just kind of navigated themselves around it. And what I find interesting is that so much of your journey is based off of that, like, and the AI algorithms that you created. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So later on, I joined the Artificial Intelligence PhD program at IIT Delhi. As I was working on AI algorithms, I noticed that we were having a tough time teaching agents to autonomously detect that a newer, better path was available, and they could switch to that. I remembered the ants from my childhood, and I thought, why not teach the same behaviors to AI agents? And when I did that, the AI agents, their results were incredibly better than the other previously known algorithms.
Yeah. It's
But
so
now-
interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting how it works in that, like, you were able to take that learning and apply it to something that feels like it was a completely disconnected world and made it make sense.
So I cannot take all the credit for it.
Of course, yeah.
There
Team
are lots
effort.
of AI scientists who actually work on nature-inspired computing
Yeah.
and bio-inspired computing. So people have been working on these technologies. However, a lot of the times in media, we don't hear about them.
Right.
So I wanted to bring more light to that nature has already solved a lot of these optimization.
Right.
And we can use the same techniques.
Like, there's a lot of parallel there, which is interesting. And so another thing that you kind of mentioned was your personal journey. You started at a hedge fund, but somehow couldn't apply that same information to your own life. And you mentioned there was like an intervention. Did someone say like, hey, wake up, this isn't for you? Like, how did that go for you?
I found it very hard. Finally, my husband actually was still in India when I was working here. He came and he literally got scared.
Oh,
when
really?
he saw me. And he forced me to apply to another job.
Yes, he knew.
There was cake. My sister-in-law did get cake.
Yeah.
My brother took me to a Broadway show.
Celebration.
So there was a real intervention.
Absolutely. Which is, I mean, the people who know us best are the ones who can sometimes take a step back and see that map for ourselves, even when we can't see it, and say, oh, there's another direction here.
Yeah.
So remind me what you said again at the end of your talk about change.
I said we should not apologize for change.
And that's a mantra that I think we can all live by, right?
You know, nature assumes that change is inevitable. That's why nature has designed species, including us, to cope with change.
Right?
But somehow, sometimes, we feel like apologizing for change.
Because we're so stuck on our paths that...
It's annoying to change.
Right. It's annoying to change. It feels different. It feels odd. And somehow we find ourselves apologizing for it. It's really interesting to think, though, that like we all should maybe take a little bit more stock in that and take a step back and figure out what other options we have to living the lives we want.
Absolutely.
Well, I've really, really enjoyed your talk, Sameena. I think it was insightful. I saw a lot of nods and a lot of mm-hms in the audience. So thank you so much for sharing. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.